this is the time of year where we start looking for underclassmen to start declaring early.
Yep.
And boy, howdy, does everybody want to get out.
Yeah.
I think everybody smelled Texas college football this year and were like, I'm gonna go make some money.
Bye.
No. The biggest one, arguably the biggest one, came down today. At least the one that was in the most doubt, I would say.
Yeah. With the most high leverage.
Correct.
Right.
As Texas Tech quarterback Pat Mahomes, the nation's leading passer, is now has declared early for the NFL draft. He is leaving Texas Tech after a remarkable season that only ended in 5 wins, which, say what you will. I mean, he led the nation in passing, and they only had 5 wins. But Pat Mahomes, he apparently was told that he got a second-round grade, which, I mean, look, you and I are believers. I think he's a stud. I think he's got all the tools. I tend to agree with Chris Brown at Smart Football, who tweeted today that he loves his tools, thinks it's the right time for him to jump, but also wants him to sit a couple years behind a veteran. And I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I think he needs to be groomed, and I think he does have all the tools to be a star in the NFL. But Pat Mahomes is leaving. And so if you look at Texas Tech, now all eyes probably turn to Nick Shemenek. He's probably going to be the guy next year. There's a couple other guys on the roster that they could turn to.
You bet there are.
But
led by Jed Duffy.
Maybe. Although, who knows what happens with the quarterback situation there.
Right.
But it's, probably Nick Shemenek moves into that starting role. And Nick Shemenek looked good in...
Good, not great.
Good, not great
Yep.
in backup duty and in kind of whenever he got banged up and in cleanup duty. So, for Tech, it stinks. It stinks, but...
What a ride it was.
And you got to tip your cap to what he was able to do there and put up the big numbers that he did. Another guy, this was one of the first ones to come out, Baylor wide receiver KD Cannon is declaring early. I mean, look, in the NFL, if you've got just burner speed, somebody will find a roster spot for you.
You got to do it.
And he's a guy with burner speed. He is a dude who can stretch the field vertically. I was never in love with his route running. I thought his route running was good, not great. And so that's something he needs to work on. But, look.
It's the right call.
It's the right call, and especially with an offense that is in flux, that you don't know what it's going to look like. Yeah. He signed up for the Art Briles offense, which is just run and gun, go deep, and I'll hit you. Matt Rule's offense probably isn't going to be like that. They're probably not going to stretch the field as much. Right. And so it's probably the right move for him. Now, that said, Baylor does need to find a new deep threat. Yeah. And there's a couple of guys on campus that can be that guy. I lean, maybe Pooh Strickland can end up being that guy.
Right.
Maybe, why am I blanking? I've been away too long. There are other guys who can step up.
They have good players that have stepped up. Blake Lynch has been good, but he's not
a deep
threat.
Maybe it's Chris Platt. It can be their deep threat. Ishmael Zamora is a good receiver, but he's probably not a deep threat. They do need somebody to come in and stretch the field, and we'll see who that ends up being. But KD Cannon, Baylor's leading receiver, is heading to the pros. So is Dante Foreman, the running back at Texas. Look, his stock went up exponentially this year, and there's no reason for him to stick around. Only bad things can happen, especially when you're a running back.
Right.
Go get that money, and I feel like that this is the right move. I feel like this is exactly what he needs to be doing, and look, he's going to go get it now. As far as who replaces him, boy, howdy. They'll probably begin to, Chris Warren, step on up. Kyle Porter, step on up.
Right.
They've got running backs. But how, again, with a new coach and a new system, by the way, they just hired Tim Beck. Texas just hired Tim Beck as their offensive coordinator. We'll probably get into that tomorrow. But they probably, it'll probably be the Chris Warren, Kyle Porter show. And, the running game has always been an important part of what Tom Herman wants to do offensively. So it's next man up. Next man up for them. Yep. It's probably going to be either Chris Warren or Kyle Porter. Also going pro, this is the least surprising thing. Texas A&M defensive end Myles Garrett is going pro.
Yeah.
He was banged up all year, and he was noticeably like a half step slower.
Yeah.
I think because of injury, but make no mistake, he's a top 10 pick. He's going to be.
There were still,
he's going to be the of the guys we're listing. He will be the first one taken.
I remember there was a couple moments in the Texas Bowl where, he would just bull rush a guy.
Oh yeah.
a guy who's got to have 100 pounds on him sometimes.
This is a dude.
He's
who
just powering him into.
This dude who coming out of Arlington Martin, we knew was going to be a top 10 NFL draft pick.
He's unreal. Even if he was hobbled, he was still.
He's leaving a year early. And good for him. Go get that money.
Right.
Look, he was their best defensive player, and I think that a lot of their struggles had to do with his injury defensively. But they've Texas A&M's done a great job of recruiting defensive line players and a bad job of turning them into superstars, with the exception of Myles Garrett. And so I'm interested to see how they do next year with a third year under John Chavis, presumably, and it'll be very interesting. So, also going pro, our boy UTEP running back Aaron Jones has declared for the NFL draft. I believe this came down Monday. Is that right? Monday,
it's been a few
maybe
days.
Friday. But he is declaring for the NFL draft, and boy, I mean, I think you and I agree that some NFL teams can go get a steal out of this kid. That they're going to be like, oh well, UTEP. Why would I go get a?
He'll end up being like a mid-round guy, and he'll be
a stud.
Awesome for them for that level.
He will be a stud. Aaron Jones is NFL ready. We thought he was NFL ready before he got hurt last year. He's definitely NFL ready right now. And now you start wondering, well, who's going to pick up the slack offensively? And it's probably going to end up being our boy Q Wadley. Q Wadley's probably going to get the majority of the carries. Now they've got another running back in Kevin Dove out of El Campo, who's going to get some looks, and they've got a number of young, promising running backs. But I would say that right now you got to presume it's going to be our boy Q Wadley out of Kennedale, getting the lion's share of the carries for UTEP next year.
It'll be fun to see.
It will be fun to see. I'm excited about that, but excited for Aaron Jones as well. And another Texas A&M player, Ricky Seals-Jones, is heading to the pros. Coming out of Sealy, you remember he played quarterback there. He then moved to wide receiver and became that big-bodied receiver.
Right.
People thought, okay, he can be the next Mike Evans. He never turned into the next Mike Evans, but he was still a big physical force on the outside.
Well, if you remember, his recruitment was between Texas and A&M was a huge deal. So,
and he was he ended up being a stud. I mean, he was a stud for Texas A&M. For a team that has a lot of guys like Josh Reynolds who can fly. Here's a guy who can just body up to a guy and make sure he come down with it. He'll probably be a mid-round pick, I would guess. I mean, I think he's a future. He's got a long future in the NFL if he stays healthy. But Ricky Seals-Jones is heading to the pros as well. One guy noticeable that he declared that he was staying. Yeah, Texas A&M safety Armani Watts. That's a really nice retention for A&M. They're going to need him.
Someone, man, because this is going to be tough for the Aggies. They're losing a lot of key players.
They're going to need him. I know he missed the Texas Bowl with an injury, and I think that he looked around and said, you know what, I'm going to wait 1 year and I'm going to rebuild my stock and maybe get up into those top rounds. Because remember, coming out of North Forney, he was a stud, and I think that he's their best secondary player. And so, player in the secondary, not secondary as far as that. But I think that he's their best defensive back. And so bringing him back is a big deal for the Aggies for 2017. So good for them and good for him for going and making sure that he gets his draft stock wherever he wants it. So that's it. Those are the announcements. We will follow them as they come. That might be – I don't know if there's any more on the horizon.